hours and conspired to synchronize stories and claims, but more critically, refused to carry out any orders or instructions from the supervisors and management, and also subjected the other staff to harassment and insults, and even labeled senior management as enablers who will be dealt with once they achieve their objectives of getting the Director General of the Food Safety and Quality Authority dismissed. The staff, upon receipt of their long-planned posting orders from June 2019, refused categorically to comply and went directly to the chairman of the board. The chairperson of the board of directors intervened and decided to give them a month deferral without management consultation and approval, thus interfering directly in the internal operations and exceeding any authority of the board or the chairperson. Long-scheduled postings and staff deployment nationally were postponed to give time for the petitioners to meet the board. At the end of the month, deferral with the petitioners still refusing to comply with any instructions from their supervisors and management. They were again issued posting orders, and again they refused to comply and insisted that they would not go without the resolution of the petition. May I kindly remind you of the adage, obey and complain. This was not being done by said petitioners, and under the Gambia Government Code of Conduct, Manual Section 6.11, refusal to comply with a posting order is considered a gross misconduct. Finally, in January 2020, the staff were given formal last warnings and then issued posting orders for which they refused to comply. After 3 months of refusal to work or comply with legal instruments, they were placed on administrative leave without pay until they claim their petition is resolved in their favor. The said parties organized and held an unauthorized press conference at the grounds of the authority in which they repeated their litany of false allegations and innuendos and continued to operate with impunity and arrogance in total disregard of the service rules and government orders. Even those who were already on leave came to join them. The petitioners are well within their rights to petition, because it's a matter of rights. But within the service rules, GO and laws of the Gambia, and other related acts, and not necessarily resorting to social and other media with false allegations and defamation or character assassinations, are not only unethical and unprofessional and morally wrong, but against the service rules of the FSQA, the government orders, and the laws of the Gambia. Based on the above, the FSQA management took the decision to institute disciplinary measures in line with the Food Safety and Quality Act service rules and the Gambia Government General Orders and Code of Conduct as below. Clause 0303(1) of the FSQA service rules, which provides thus: the authority reserves the right to dismiss any employee for serious misconduct, for undermining the confidence of your employer and or the image of your employer. Participation in the illegal press conference without the permission of management held at the FSQA premises on 15 January 2020 is contrary to clause 0703 of the Food Safety and Quality Services rules. Refusal of posting orders and any orders from your immediate supervisor and management in violation of clause 6.1.14 of the General Orders GO Code of Conduct. Violation of section 0708 on internal correspondences of the authority's service rules. Similarly, the petitioners decided to post damaging information in the social media, thus flouting the confidentiality required in administrative work contrary to section 1 General Clause 03103 of the Gambia Government General Orders and Code of Conduct.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Honorable Member for Banjul Central, you have any supplementary question?
Speaker, my question is, how many times have the staff of FSQA received warning letters regarding their conduct before they are dismissed?
When every decision that was made with regards to the situation that I have explained has been overturned, and currently the staff of the FSQA are now all reinstated. They are now given opportunity with warning letters to come back to the institutions. Also, with this process that we went through, it was a learning point for all of us. There are rules and regulations, and we're talking about reforms, we're talking about democracy, we're talking about strengthening institutions. And it is the rules that are in those institutions and the regulations of the government and all other related tools that should regulate the conduct of work in our institution. We have seen gaps. The government orders supersede all orders, but institutions do have their internal regulations. And the basis on which the reversals were done was that, yes, it has been prepared, but not signed. They were not signed. The documents were not signed, and therefore, the argument was, since they are not signed, we are going to make sure that we bring them back and we work on the reforms. So as it is now, some of the recommendations, this experience has triggered the type of engagement that is needed to reform our institutions. It has triggered the awareness of the fact that we must do our business right and complete the governing documents that are supposed to govern us in this republic in order for us to be proud of the institutions that we are going to work in our institutions. So this is what I want to share with you. So everything that was taken because of the flouting of those rules, because the rules were not signed, we have to learn our lessons to understand that we can only apply the law when the law in itself has gone through certain processes and procedures. So this was a learning point for all of us. But I also feel that because of the changes that have occurred and institutions were weakened, if we don't take the right steps, we will not achieve what we want. So the number of times that were done is in the files. It was based on informed decisions. That was why, because the social media was full of it. Everything was done that was flouting the rules and regulations of confidentiality in institutions, respect for authority, following due processes, and due diligence to make things happen, even to the point that it was very damaging for the image of the institution and those that were working there. So this is a lesson for all of us to learn. And this is a lesson for all of us to engage constructively in moving this country forward. And the resentment and the changes were all acknowledged and appreciated by my authority, because it is under the office of the Vice President, and therefore we have to look at things from a very objective point of view. Thank you.
Very much. Honorable Member for Banjul South.
The Honorable Vice President said that I know that it is overtaken by events because they've been reinstated. But in his answer, he said that there were clear reasons why they were dismissed. I don't think there were clear reasons, because if there were clear reasons, then they wouldn't have been reinstated. And defamation, are they the courts to accuse them of defamation? And then I can see that there is still no remorse. It is because that the regulations were not signed. That's why they are reinstated. Can the Honorable Vice President guarantee their job security? Because those people were exercising their rights. That did not call for dismissal or suspension. I think what it called for was for the Director General to be properly investigated because there were clear allegations, and that was never mentioned. The people that made the allegations were victimized rather than the authorities having looked at the allegations that were made against. And instead of doing them justice, they victimized them. What is the guarantee that their job will be secured? Because I felt, and I still feel, that they were unfairly treated. What is the guarantee for their security?
Thank you very much. If we know the theory of change and we understand the theory of institutions, people are directed and are guided by institutional processes, principles, and praxis that guard those institutions to deliver effectively, efficiently, and effectively. And all institutions have their rules. All institutions have regulations. And there are what we call management processes and procedures of engagement in all institutions. The institutions have rights. Individuals within those institutions have rights. And it is those rights that are put together to be able to come up with objective, transparent, and possible ways of dealing with whatever things may occur over time during the processes. Therefore, to avoid or to mitigate any subjectivities, institutions are guided by those procedures. And I want to assure you that everything that was done, it went through a very thorough scrutiny. It went through a lot of questioning, and it was based on evidence. Those institutions, if those laws are not applied, then there is no need to govern in any situation, and there is no need to talk about development. What was used to deal with this matter was dealt with by all the instruments I have called, and they are used as sources to make us reach that level. And there are certain misdemeanors that were done. You are working with an institution. You are supposed to have that confidentiality. You are supposed to respect the rules and regulations. You have to follow the GO and government orders and other internal rules and procedures that are supposed to guide the term of work and engagement. If they are flouted, what would you say? If they are flouted, do we have to accept the fact that they are exercising their rights? As I said in my presentation, they have rights to raise their issues. They have right to write petitions, because those are rights put in the rules. But there is a manner and procedure that those things are supposed to take for responses to be done. But to the fact that you are giving an ultimatum that I will not do this until this happens, then we might as well close the whole country and then leave it to be what it is. We must apply rules and regulations. We must apply procedures, and that was not done. I want to tell you that when these things were looked at and reviewed, that was why those rights that infringes on their right to work were all recognized and respected. And I think I want to give credit to this government for accepting certain procedures where there are lacunas, where there are gaps, and where there is need to improve on them, and be stoical, be professional enough to accept them so that we can improve the rules, we can improve the regulations, we can improve the governing instruments that govern us at different directions. With regard to job security, we do not have any personal sentiments against any of those workers. I don't even know them. We've not met them in a way that they think that we are going to say, what you are doing is wrong, but we were calling them to accountability. The engagements that were done was based on fundamental freedoms and the liberty and freedom of engagement based on rights. So the job security that you are talking about is definitely guaranteed. If it was not guaranteed, how would they be back? And I can assure you, this government is a hallmark of professional ethics and standards, and we are going to uphold that. Their job is secured. Whatever they do is going to be taken on the basis of institutional procedures and not because they have been reinstated. Is their right? Thank you.
Honorable Speaker, can the Honorable Vice President inform this August gathering, since she agrees that there are lacunas in our operations or in our institutions that lead to all this trouble, whether they have new strategies to ensure that people are given the natural justice of other party when issues arise?
Thank you very much. This is a very good question. This engagement and this event has created a situation where we were able to sit down and reflect, look at the gaps, which I clearly spelled here, and see what were the lacunas and the gaps so that we will come together and make sure that we get the institutions right. And it was on the basis of the lack of signing of those documents that were cogent reasons and other factors that we said we give them the benefit of the doubt and allow them to come back. Their benefits were paid. They were given letters to show them what their duties are, and all other administrative procedures that were to be taken have been taken. And for me, I think this is a big success for justice. For the fact that we are coming in when certain institutions were almost weak. If we acknowledge that we inherited a lot of weak institutions and we need to fix them right, we will be tested on all grounds. And the fact that we are coming from different backgrounds and people are not very aware of what institutions are supposed to be, given the fact that we were having a dictatorship, things happen without anything. There were so many problems that we are intuiting, which we inherited. So it is our duty to be bold enough to stand up and recognize those problems and then move on forward. And that is exactly what we are doing. That's what we are doing. And right now there is a program of action which we are working on, so that whatever weaknesses that might have been seen, we will deal with them and address them. And maybe some of them will one day come to you here as we progress for you to look at, and then we move forward for a better Gambia.
Honorable Member for Upper Fuladu.
High Excellency, going by the answer you provided, you mentioned the misconduct that was being practiced by the staff. During your investigation, do you call all the parties concerned, or do you engage the management? Because there are a lot of allegations made against the management that there are serious misconduct and abuse of office. In case the management was found wanted, well, what will be your stand? Thank you.
It is the evidence before you that should be the basic principles of taking a decision. It could be on both sides. There were certain things that were dealt with, and it happens to fall on one side. We had to take these right steps. Right now, the former director is no longer there. She's not found to be wanting, as was misrepresented, because I, for one, am interested in making sure that we get our institutions right. And having been in a position to be able to take responsibility or something that falls under my purview, I will try as much as possible to do my best based on professional ethics. And everything that was done was there. Now, you must understand also, even me, when the process was going on, I was being insulted. But I understand. I understand for the fact that we are emerging from a difficult situation. And when change comes, and you want to put certain things in place, people resist. And when those resistances do come, we are in a reform process. And that reform process that is going on, many people will not want to go in because change is a difficult process. And some of them, they are used to the habits that they were used to. I will not go for posting. I have been here. I was the first person to be appointed. And therefore, I don't have to go. Decentralization, what? I cannot go if you don't give me a better house because I don't have this, I don't have that. And so many other things. You can negotiate, and we have to give the basic minimum standards that are there. But getting to the point that you are going to say, it is what I want that needs to be happening, is dictatorial. And those are the tendencies we have to avoid in managing our institutions and in doing whatever we are doing to move forward. So the rules apply where it applies. But as I said, we have looked at all these questions that are asked and now culminating into evidence-based information that we're going to use to improve our institutions, because people come and go, government come and go, but institutions will always remain. And what guides those institutions is those rules, regulations, processes, and laws that are in place that every individual that comes to those institutions will inherit to move forward.
Honorable Member for Nyamina East.
Vice President, what is your take, if I put it to you, that the DG has the right to dismiss only those in category 3, and it is the board that have the right to dismiss those in category 2? And if that is the case in that regard, are you committed to take any legal action against the DG as per the law governing the institution?
I wish we knew what processes were undertaken in dealing with this matter. And if we're going to bring in the law and litigate against each other, then we might consider FSQA closed for a very long time, because you're talking about rights of the institution, rights of the individuals that are within that contestation, and all other procedures that govern the whole institution and its practice and praxis. The categories you are talking about, within the framework of the FSQA rules and regulations, which has been used as a basis, which was not signed, are the reason why they came. Would you understand that as a civil servant or an employee of an institution, you are not supposed to give information that is not correct, that is not true, to the public, to the point that it went to the social media and gave damaging information on an individual who was trying to implement and apply his or her duty to what is her responsibility? I think Gambia, what we need to do is to try to rectify the anomalies, and I think this is a great opportunity to rectify the anomalies. If it is a tit-for-tat issue, just like you are calling for those the constituency you represent in terms of this case, and if the director or the management also came and they face in court, law of court, it will be a different ball game. This government knows it has inherited a lot of institutions that needs to be taken care of, that needs to be put in place. And this is one good example by which we are now taking to consider in terms of all the reforms. Reforms are going on. I guess you all know about that. And these reforms, as they go, we are unpacking and seeing a lot of dynamics unfolding. These dynamics that are unfolding are lessons for us to learn, are lessons for us to follow and build a better Gambia. Not a Gambia where we will be taking each other to the law courts. Then we may not move forward with what we want. So I want to tell you that the due processes were done, the due diligences were done, and we have interceded in many things that we feel we want to move the organization further, rather than create that sort of legal tussle when people are just trying to follow up on procedures to move. To err is human.
Your Excellency, I think I'm not very sure whether the supplementary question that was asked with regards to the Director General, am I right, was actually captured. So if probably you could just repeat the supplementary question and then...
Yes, she responded. She took she quoted the right relevant issues that were under her purview. And she responded. And I think there is a lot of correspondence to that effect, that she had followed the due diligence and processes to do that. Yes, those that were under her categories, she did it.
Thank you. What we will do, I think at the end of maybe this week or early next week, we'll compile the responses and make them available so you can follow it up. Thank you.
My question is not answered. I asked a very precise question.
Ask you. That was why I asked the Honorable, the High Excellency, the Vice President, that I'm not sure your question was answered.
Yes.
And I thought you said yes.
I never said yes. I am asking the Madam...
Reason why all of us cannot speak at the same time. You have to listen to each other. Repeat your supplementary question.
I am simply asking precisely. He does not have the right whatsoever, according to the law, to dismiss those in category 2. She only have the right to dismiss those in category 3. And according to my findings, the DG went ahead and dismissed those in category 2. So I am asking whether she is committed to
Sorry,
any
please,
legal action
Honorable,
against
just ask
the
a
DG.
direct question. If you ask a direct question.
As I said earlier, institutions are governed by certain acts and policies and procedures and processes that ultimately leads them to make certain decisions. And I said, everything that I read here was bounded by particular provisions of the GO and government orders, and also by the document that is governing the FSQA. Some of these issues that you raised before the DG acts are based on rule books and acts that establish the institution. So everything that she did with regards to those dismissals were bounded by those rules and regulations. The second question that you asked, within the first question you asked, whether the issue of litigation. I said, in this country, what we are trying to do now is to look at our institutions and see how best we can look at the gaps. This was a good example. It was a good learning point for all of us to look at what is there and accept, being brave enough to accept some of the lacuna and the gaps and work forward with them rather than going for litigations. I just want to remind you about that. So whatever the DG did was based on some of the books and the acts of establishing the institution and also the governing instruments of government.
Honorable nominated member Jaite.
I would just like to say I still feel that the honorable member's question wasn't answered, but I would move to my own question. From what I've heard from the minister, from the honorable vice president's explanation, these people, there were people made allegation, over 15 people made an allegation against one person. And instead of that person being investigated or put on hold for, let's say, a leave with pay, until these serious allegations that were made against her to be investigated, those people who made these allegations were the ones who were reposted or dismissed. I don't understand the rationale behind that decision. And what came out from the investigations of these allegations that were made against the DG? And if these allegations were false, why was this DG removed from the position and those people who were victimized have their victimization reversed and brought back to their position? Is this a mistake in investigation? Who investigated this? Where is the report?
You talked about allegations. 15 people made allegations against one person. That is your question your first question. Their letter of petition has brought in quite a number of allegations. And when that was done, there was a due process put in place. I want to explain to you how institutions work now, so that you know. When the letter came, and it was received, what we did was to institute a commission of inquiry to look into the litigation, and an independent body was recruited without interference in this process. It gave them the opportunity to allow each of the parties involved, if we're talking about fundamental freedoms and rights of individuals. You had those who made the allegations and those who was, the person who was alleged to have involved. That panel allowed both to come up, investigated and interviewed them and asked critical questions, and therefore wrote a report which was submitted to the Office of the Vice President. That report was received, and we instructed that the person who is being reported or has the right to respond to the issues raised against her and her senior management. That was done. In every institution, whatever happens, when this is a procedure, a standard given procedure in all institutions all over the world, and that's what we did. It's not because there are 15 people against one person, therefore, because of their numbers, they are on the right track, or because we want to favor this order. They came with their letter. We set up a panel. They investigated. They gave us a report, and we said, the person has a right to respond to the issues raised against her, and that's what we did. She came with her own responses, counter evidences, and it was subjected to further scrutiny. There were options that were brought in that was placed in front of the staff who showed their grievances. And in the discovery of some of those works, there were people who were part of that 15, who were not members, who were already gone 10 years ago. But because this change has happened, and they thought this is an opportunity for us to try our chance, they came in to join those who were appointed, fully appointed by the institutions. The evidence is there. So the first answer to your question is, both had the right to explain both sides of it. 15 and the individual and her senior management. Why was the DG removed? As another question you asked. The DG is not removed. If we go by institutional procedures, the DG was moved to another institution and another set of people brought in to move on with the institutions. As I said, these are strategies in development paradigms that are used in strengthening institutions and trying to bring in harmony and bring continuity. And these are government civil servants who can be moved when necessary. So there is nothing wrong with that had happened. We're talking about a human rights-based democracy. And we have to protect all rights as long as they fall within the principles of what is expected. What we do in management practice, you apply certain step-by-step procedures. We have applied those steps of procedures. We could have told them, now this is what the both sides are saying, go to court and settle them. It is not in the best interest of any good democracy to do so. Especially if it is within the frame of an institution in which ways and means can be done to respond to them. And that is what happened.
Thank you. Fonyi Councillor.
It mentioned, if I got you right, that lessons have been learned, and I believe if lessons have been learned, it's both parties. Now, my question is, in your view, looking at the strength of the FSQA staff, was it a wise move to dismiss?
Sorry, I think that is asking for an opinion. Can you ask a supplementary question?
All right,
to
okay. You know, yeah, I'm still coming to that. Yeah, okay, I can remove the word view and substitute it with, during the process that this number of staff were dismissed from work, what negative impact did it have on the institution?
Thank you very much. That is why I believe the line of action that was taken was to bring to light the type of image and the type of actions and attitudes of some of our civil servants in the institutions who are supposed to follow the rules and regulations that bind them. The stories they were taking out to the social media, these emails they were sending out, of course, it's not going to give a good light to any country, even or to any institution. And therefore, needs to be nipped in the bud to make sure that the reforms and the changes we want will go according to conventional practices in institutions. What had happened, you've been following the social media, and this is not only with FSQA, but this is the example I'm going to give. Things that are supposed to be internal matters, things that are supposed to have been dealt with institutionally, have gone even before the persons get, and there were even so many actions that were already has a negative impact on all institutions all over the world, and there should be zero tolerance to that. So therefore, the impact that it has created is why we are now taking action to respond to those things, as I said, the gaps and so on. They are not supposed to share information or organize unacceptable meetings in the office, refusing to take their orders. They refused to do a lot of things. And even me as the vice president, I was not respected in that process because I was trying to say, please go in, we are responding to that, and say we are not going. It has a negative impact. And I don't think any individual who wants to move this country forward, or the institutions even as small as at any level, would want that. It has a negative impact indeed. And that is what we have to address as a country and as a whole. And the rules and regulations that are supposed to bind that, if they were not signed, and that is the basis for which they are coming back, I think I agree in total that we have to address them, and that's what we are doing. You are right. It has a negative impact.
assalamu alaikum musidɓe am fulɓe, on calminama neɗɗo fof kala ɗo woni e inde muɗum e yettode muɗum e ko kibaru gimmorɗo en to TRRC banggal biyetegal TRRC. eɗen fof eɗen gandi TRRC ko député ɓe men darningal damal ɗi darna tan fi humpitade bonandeji mbannoɗi e nder laamu Yaya Jammeh, ɗum woni